Hey tribe, Iserloh here, and in this video we're going to talk about the 3 mistakes to avoid with your practice website. So you make the right first impression with prospective patients. We're also going to talk about an actual example of a website so you can see what that needs to look like in practice. And I'm going to give you the key questions to ask before you hire a web developer so that you know that you're well protected and that your web developer can actually deliver on what you need for your practice website. Now, you only make a first impression once, and so that's why it's so critical that your website positions you correctly. And this is especially important if you expect your patients to pay $3,000 to $10,000 out of pocket for your services, right? So they want to make sure that you're legit, and the way they determine this is by looking at your website. Now, I always compare attracting clients or patients with the process of dating. And so the process is very similar to create a relationship. You have to look the part, you have to say the right things, and you got to get their contact information, right? No contact information, no first date, no second date, no marriage. And so similar thing. When people come to your website, the most important part is getting people's email address. And so we're going to talk about this in a second. If you want to go deeper on this topic, be sure to click the links below this video to get my guide on how to create a better website, along with the questions you should be asking any web designer or web developer that you're intending to hire. All right, so let's get into the 3 mistakes. Mistake number 1 is your website needs to look the part. And here's what I mean by that. Looks matter, and if you think back to your dating days, you are probably looking for a very specific type of person, right? And so same is true for your patients. They have very specific expectations of what they're looking for in a practitioner. And so when they come to your website, we have to meet their expectations. You know, if we do, then we make people feel much more comfortable to take the next step forward. Now, if our website looks like it was designed in 2004, our audience may falsely assume that you haven't updated your clinical knowledge either, right? How you do one thing, in this case your website, speaks volumes about how you do everything. And so you want to create the right expectation that your website has attention to detail, that there's nothing that's off that people would find irritating or not on point, misspellings, etc. And so, you know, how your website looks visually is very important in their perception of you and whether or not they take the next step with you. Now, let's look at a very specific website example to show you some quick pointers. So here's an example of one of our website templates for integrative medicine practitioners. As you can see, it's a very sophisticated feel using gradient images, and you know, you can adjust the color scheme to your practice's colors. The content is easily digestible and skimmable, so small blurbs with information that lead people deeper into your website with buttons. You can see lead magnets prominently featured. For instance, here is the 10 and 10, as well as 2 other lead magnets around digestive health. And again, what we're doing here is we have custom heading fonts to really create that extra little bit of sophistication that your audience will appreciate. In other pages, you can see, for instance, for the services, again, lots of use of lists so people can easily skim the content, make it easy for people to comprehend the information. And in terms of the blog category pages, you want to use what's called a masonry layout. So it's not the typical layout in chronological order where you just see one block at a time. This is a masonry design where it's designed to get people an easy look at lots of different blog posts. So we want people to appreciate the full range of blog posts that you have to offer, not just the first 3 that are shown on the page, and then people are never scrolling further beyond to see all your other amazing content. So this is important. And when it comes to individual blog posts, you want to ensure that the sidebar has your lead magnets so that when people read the article, they see matching lead magnets both in the sidebar along with a recent post, and you should also make sure that at the end of the article you have another lead magnet. So the goal is always to get more people to opt in for your mailing list. And then finally, you need to have your lead magnet set up on what's called landing pages. These are dedicated pages where people can download your lead magnet, and you can use these pages in context with your social media. So from social media, you can send people directly to this landing page, and the only option that you give people here is to opt in or leave. And that is really intentional because we don't want to allow people to browse the rest of your website. At this point, we really want people to opt in and get on your mailing list. And beyond those visual features, you should also make sure that your website contains video, because ultimately your goal as a practitioner is to create a connection, a bond with your prospective patients. So video does this in a perfect way. You get to talk about things, deliver information, at the same time you create connection and intimacy. And then from a technical perspective, as it affects the looks, is you want to make sure that your website is optimized for mobile devices and speed, because that factors into making a perfect first impression. Because if your website is taking forever to load, people will leave and you just blew your chance. And the final item is that in order to make updating your website easy, especially if you're on WordPress, you want to use a visual theme builder, and we like Elementor or Divi theme builder, two of the more common choices. All right, let's get to mistake number 2, and that is, are you going to say the right things? So just like in dating, they expect to have an exchange of ideas, a conversation when you first meet them. And so what we want to make sure is that on your website that you are connecting with them in the right order. It's not the time to talk all about yourself, about your credentials, about your degrees, about your education, about your services. When they first come to your website, what they really care about is one thing. Can you help me? Can you help me get to where I want to go? They want to know that you can take them from where they are right now to the desired destination. How you get them there is at that point really irrelevant. So you just want to make sure that they feel acknowledged, that you can show them that you speak in a language that connects with them, with their problems that they have right now. And then only after they're on your email list, then you can go more into the specifics about how the process actually looks like. So if we're going back to the dating analogy, what we want to avoid here is really boring them to death with tons and tons of pages without really appearing to ask questions about them, be interested in them. And so I think too many practitioners are missing the boat here by being too forward. They're just asking to get married. They pop the question. It's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't even know you, right? So, when you ask too many questions about schedule a phone consultation, learn about our services, here's our packages. What you're doing there is you're focusing your mind on the money part. How much is this going to cost? We haven't really even established if they want to get healthy, right? So if you don't have agreement that they want to get healthy and that you're the right person to help them with it, why are we talking about money at this point and services, right? We have to establish that first before we can move on. And so if you're thinking back to what's right in dating is definitely right for your web copy and what you do in the email copy in your videos. So when you're working with a web designer, make sure that they get the strategic aspects of what you're doing with your marketing. It's not about just building a website, it's a communication solution. So just as much as you expect your web designer to help you with the visuals, you also need support on the copywriting and the marketing and the positioning. And so if you want to get the questions that you should ask your web designer before you hire them, then click the link below this video because that is one of the biggest things that I see practitioners struggle with, that they're hiring a web designer to build them a website, and then the web designer is asking them a million questions. Do you want this or do you want that? What do you want me to do there? And ultimately, the practitioner is put in the position to be the decider and directing the workflow and directing what needs to happen. And I believe that as an integrative medicine practitioner, your zone of genius is healing people. And so you should partner up with a web development agency that really knows functional medicine, that speaks your language, that already knows your avatar, and that can give you useful guidance on the strategy and the copy aspects of what you have to communicate to your prospective patients. Which brings me to mistake number 3 when it comes to practice website. You need to be focused on collecting people's email addresses. If we go back to the concept of dating, if you don't get that person's contact information, their email or their phone number, there is not going to be a first date. There's not going to be a second date or marriage down the road, right? So when people come to your website, you have one shot at getting their email address, and you want to do your best to make a compelling argument why they should part with their email address through what we call lead magnets. Now, after reviewing over 1,200 practitioner websites in the last 2 years alone, I've seen so many websites that have a newsletter sign-up box on their website, and I think that's a terrible idea. People don't want more newsletters. They're already inundated with emails, so a newsletter with more random stuff is not going to cut the mustard. And then number two, you don't want to be on the hook to write newsletters in the first place, right? And so the idea is that when you have a lead magnet, which is a piece of valuable content, something that helps them move the needle on their health in exchange for the email address, that is a much better way to capture people's email addresses, because now you know what that person is actually interested in there. Do they sign up for lead magnets around digestive health, or are they signing up for a lead magnet around autoimmune disease, or is it cognitive health, right? So depending on what lead magnet people sign up for, that tells you what you have to talk about in your email marketing. And because you know what they are interested in there, you can now be much more relevant in building this communication, building that connection with your audience, because you know exactly what's inside their head. So if you don't have lead magnets on your website that relate to the services that you're offering, then it's really high time to get that done. And the way you feature these lead magnets is prominently on the homepage with images and buttons. You would link it from the main navigation and mention them there. And you should also feature them on any blog page in the sidebar, as well as at the end of a blog post, as we mentioned previously. So the more places you can feature the lead magnets, the better. So now that you've seen an example of a compelling website for health practitioners, be sure to check out the resources below this video. You'll find questions to ask your web designer so you make the right hiring decision. Plus you get my recommendation on what WordPress themes, plugins, and other resources I recommend to make your life easier in developing a website. And if you're interested in talking to our team about building your website, you'll find the information on that as well. So if this video was helpful to you, be sure to comment, like, and share the videos with people that need to see it. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, be sure to hit the subscribe button and then check the bell to be notified every time a new video goes live. I'll see you next week.